And the COVID-19 relief bill will extend an eviction moratorium into the new year. Our News Nation research team found that nearly 11 million families say they are behind on rent payments, and nearly 8 million say they're not sure if they can make their next payment on time. That's according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau. Several governors have passed protections at the state level to protect residents from becoming homeless. California, Minnesota, and New Jersey are just some of those states. Governor Gavin Newsom prohibited evictions until February 1st. Minnesota's executive order protects those tenants until the pandemic is over, while New Jersey's will last up to 2 months after the pandemic ends.
Join us tonight to talk about the impacts of the eviction protection is Diane Yentel. She is the president and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition and has more than 20 years worth of experience working in affordable housing policies. Diane, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I guess the first question is, what does today's news of the president signing this relief bill, how does that handle and your response to that signing?
Well, it's a tremendous relief, and it's a relief for tens of millions of renters who were on the verge of being evicted this winter when the federal eviction moratorium expired this Thursday. If the federal government hadn't intervened and extended that eviction moratorium, as the COVID relief package will do, we would have been facing the very real possibility of tens of millions of people losing their homes this winter during this height of COVID-19, and the consequences of that would have been catastrophic. So the extension is not long enough. The resources that are being provided for low-income renters are not enough to keep people stably housed for the duration of the pandemic, but it's an essential and desperately needed first step.
You mentioned relief. How much desperation did you and your organization hear from when the president had not signed this over the weekend?
Oh, people were so filled with anxiety and fear and terror in some cases about what would happen to them if they were evicted this week. And they worried about, and they wrote to us about their fears of what would happen to them and their kids when they have no place to go and are at risk of losing their homes with very few options available to them. You know, when low-income renters are evicted, they typically double or triple up in overcrowded housing with other low-income renters, or they sleep in their cars or RVs, or they end up in congregate homeless shelters. And in many of those situations, it's very difficult to socially distance, certainly impossible to isolate or quarantine if needed. And they were scared of what would happen to them if they were to get sick with COVID-19, what it would mean for them and their families, what it would mean for their communities, for the increased spread of COVID-19. So I know many of them are feeling a lot of relief right now that this bill has been signed and that eviction moratorium is extended now through the end of January.
I think it's important to remember that the eviction moratorium was not forgiveness. Back rent rather is still due. Are there things that renters can do now to prepare to catch up for the time that the moratorium is eventually lifted?
Right. It's a really important point because the eviction moratorium provides essential protections to keep people housed who would otherwise be losing their homes during this pandemic. But rent is still due, and there are estimates that by the end of this year, low-income renters will owe anywhere between $30 billion and $70 billion in back rent, which is clearly more than they can pay off in their lifetimes. So another piece of good news in this COVID relief package is that it will provide $25 billion in emergency rental assistance. So clearly not enough for all of the back rent that's due, for all of the forward rent that low-income people will continue to need help with paying, but it is a substantial assistance that will be available to many people. So the next step now will be for Treasury to get that money out to states and localities and for them to work very quickly and get some of that assistance into the hands of low-income renters and into the hands of small landlords who need it.
What's your advice to those who are currently struggling with rent?
Well, they should look into local resources that might be available to them. Even before this $25 billion is being made available through this relief package, there was a much smaller amount of emergency rental assistance made available through the CARES Act, which passed in the end of March. So we've been tracking emergency rental assistance programs across the country. At last count, there were about 520 of them that had been created across the country. We have on our website a public-facing database of all of those emergency rental assistance programs. Now, about 35% of those programs have shut down because resources have been depleted. They will now get a new infusion of funds from this COVID relief package, but some of the other programs have funds available today. So I recommend that renters go to our website, go to their state and city websites, and see if there's any assistance available to them. They should also talk with their landlords and work with their landlords. They should know that this eviction moratorium applies to them. They are protected from eviction for non-payment of rent through the end of January. And then they should talk to their landlords and see if they can figure out a payment plan or some other way to get their landlords whatever amount they can pay in rent now, and then when the assistance starts to flow, to be able to pay the back rent as well.
Diane, very quickly, we're out of time, but before you go, is it your understanding now that the relief bill has been signed that there is no stopgap in coverage for those who need rental assistance?
So the rental assistance funds will start flowing to states and cities, I'd say within a month, and that's when renters can start to look to get some of this relief. And in the meantime, there is no pause in the protection under the federal eviction moratorium. That applies through the end of January.
Diane Yentel, thank you so much, President and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Thanks for spending time on News Nation.
Thanks for having me.